Wow, look at this, guys. But some of you don't even know what this is. Anyways, welcome back to the channel, guys. I'm going to talk to you about things you should look for before buying a C5 Corvette. While you're looking at one as well, do your research. I'll give you some pointers, but these are pretty important for people that are buying any C5 Corvette, or especially anything 2000 and older. So 97 through 2000. These are some important things. For starters, these are, sorry about the camera, guys. I'm using my phone, so a little shaky. These are the high flow cats that I purchased for the C5. These are 200 cell count high flow cats. So that's what will be going in. Anyways, so a few things that you should consider before buying a C5 Corvette, especially a 97 through 2000. And one of the things that a lot of people ask about is the the ECBM. That is for the active handling system in the car. So they do not make that part anymore, and I'll show you what it is. It's actually, it's kind of hard to see. Sorry for the lighting. It's actually that unit right there. Geez, it's almost, you can't even see it. This unit right here. It's where all the brake lines go through and everything. That right there. So on the 97 through 2000, those things go bad because I believe it's because they don't get cycled enough, and not only that, the soldering points, they deteriorate, they get corroded, and they go bad. So the cheap fix for this is, if you know what you're doing, take it apart and resolder everything, and it usually works again. It's also good to cycle it, so make the ABS, make your ABS system active. Make it activate. It'll cycle everything in there. So that's very important. They don't make that unit anymore. It's $1,500 used if you have the active handling. If you find one that's new old stock, I've seen those things go for like $3,000, which is ridiculous. The other unit, if you don't have the active handling, I think it's like $500 to $700, maybe $1,000. The 2001 through 2004 Corvettes are different. They're still available, but they're getting more scarce, and they don't cost as much. They cost less, and you could get even those used for about $300 if those go bad. But that's very important. Another thing is the column lock. These have a column lock issue where the car won't start. So that's pretty easy to bypass. You could do that yourself if you're mechanically inclined. So that's another thing to look for. Going back to the ECBM, you'll usually have the traction control light on and the ABS light on if that thing's bad, or if it's starting to go bad. And that's something you need to consider. So if you're looking at a UC5, turn the car on, let it run. If those lights stay on, you need to run and check the codes on there, because if that thing's bad, you're in for spending some money. The column lock issue, it'll actually tell you in the message center. Sometimes it'll say service column lock. Another thing is the air pressure sensors for the tires. Those are kind of expensive on the 97 through 2000. They cost $130 each, I think, for factory ones. The newer Vettes, they're cheaper, but they do sell aftermarket options for all of them. The 97 through 2000 are still more expensive on the aftermarket options, but they're kind of a pain in the ass to reprogram sometimes. Sometimes the computer won't take. There's a procedure how to do it with magnets and whatever. I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to get into this. This is a quick video. Another thing is the radio. So you can just switch speakers out and everything, but everything operates off the Bose radio. So I got rid of everything on mine. I kept everything that I had factory in a box, but I installed a new stereo. I put amps, and I put a subwoofer and some mids and everything else. I replaced the whole system because it sounded like crap. Some people think it sounds good. It doesn't sound that good. There's not that much bass, and it doesn't sound that great. If you don't care about the radio, who cares? I kind of like having some good tunes, so I did a system, and it was cheap. I mean, audio equipment is so cheap these days. Who cares? I bought the whole system for $245, and I put it in myself. I do everything myself on this car, so I save a lot of money on labor. Another thing you have to consider is the harmonic balancer on these cars goes bad. The rubber separates, and there is no way in hell I'm going to be able to see. Let me get a flashlight real quick. All right, let me get a light. So there's the ECBM, by the way, right there. That unit right there. See where all the brake lines are coming out? Right there. Dampers all the way down. I can't get around the car, so kind of hard to see. But anyways, the damper on these cars is blocked by the power steering rack. So it's not like, oh, hey, I'll do this in an hour or so. You're going to have to take all this stuff off up here. And air intake, the radiator cover, the radiator. You don't have to move the condenser. You're going to have to pull the power steering rack out and the rack and pinion. And then you could get to the damper. And that's not just for C5s, that's for C6s as well. What will happen is while the engine is running, the damper will wobble. So you'll see the damper wobbling. Very important to check that when you're considering a C5 or a C6 Corvette. And when I worked at the dealership, they used to get a lot of those in there. A friend of mine, he just left from the dealership, he told me the same thing. They got a lot of them, C6s. Low mileage, doesn't matter. This car only had, when I did the cam, it had 28,000 miles, and it was already separating, and it was wobbling a little bit. So I took care of all that stuff while I was in there doing the cam. So that's another thing to consider. These are some, really important things to look at when you're going to buy a C5 Corvette. So make sure you take a, scan tool with you. Look at the whole car, look at the suspension bushings, all the typical stuff, fluids and all that other stuff. But the most important is ask if the damper's been changed, the harmonic balancer. Ask about the ECBM, if they've ever had issues with the traction control system or anything like that. And, those kind of things. Radio could be replaced, the air pressure sensors, whatever. I had some questions about a cam install. Yeah, I did the cam install myself. I'm pretty mechanically inclined, so it's not that bad, for me at least. Pretty much do the cam install on this. Just real quick, you're going to have to pull the air intake bridge, the whole air intake out, radiator cover, radiator's going to come out, all the hoses, just move them out of the way. You're going to have to drain the coolant. One thing is you will have to pull the power steering rack out because you have to pull the damper out. So if you're in there, make sure you replace all the gaskets. And I always prefer OEM gaskets. Always use the OEM gaskets because they won't leak. I don't trust the only place I use aftermarket gaskets was for the valve covers. I used Felpro Blues, and those were good. I've always used those. But and then once you get into the timing cover, it's not that bad. You pull the cam out. You replace the cam plate cover as well because that's got its own little gasket on it. It's not that bad. You're gonna need help, but getting the rack out is a bear. Sometimes it was a real pain in the ass pulling the rack out of mine. But these are just some quick tips for you guys to to consider before you go out and buy a Corvette. I know some of you, and I've seen people do it. Oh, they find a car, it's got some Z06 wheels on it, it's got the exhaust, it's got everything, but then it's got the traction control light on, while they're driving, and they have no idea what they're getting themselves into. So, I just recently saw a video on YouTube where I saw a young kid do this and kind of felt bad for him. So I just want to make this quick video, just check these quick things before you get involved in a Corvette. So, some people are asking about the exhaust. It will go on hopefully if I get it next week with the high flow cats and everything else. Stay tuned for our next video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.